Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Keunyoung Jang, the host of Please Solve Me.
Hello everyone, this is Chaeyeon Lee, the host of this webinar.
It's official autumn here in Korea, but it's still really hot. We hope that it's cooler where you are and that everyone is doing well. Let's get into today's webinar. First, we want to thank you from the bottom of our heart for your ongoing support. Each month, we dedicate a significant amount of time selecting questions, researching answers, and creating visual presentations. The support we will receive from the medic community makes it all worthwhile, and I assure you that we are committed to providing the highest quality content for you all. Our webinar is for questions that were selected from those recently posted in the Facebook community. The questions chosen often highlight basic and important issues that would also be helpful for someone new to medicine to understand. Each month, we group the questions into four main categories, and as you can see from the image on the screen, we have selected questions that fit this month's topic. We hope that by tuning in each month, we'll be able to enhance your skills in digital dentistry.
Why do the occlusal contacts in the full arch scan data change significantly between the pre-scan data and the post-processed scan data?
The first question is regarding an occlusion issue. Daniel noticed that the occlusal contact in the pre-scan data changes significantly after processing, and he is wondering why the occlusion always differs between pre and post-processing. He shows what his occlusion settings screen looks like, and I assume that he wants to adjust these settings to ensure minimal change. It's obvious that there is a significant difference between pre and post-processing, with the processing resulting in an overbite occlusion, while that did not exist in the pre-processed image. Then how can you adjust the degree of processing to get the desired level of occlusion? Today, we will prepare a few slides going over everything you need to know about the processing of occlusion scan data. Chen, did you ever get an unexpected change in the occlusion scan during the post-process stage?
Yes, in my experience, this happens more in project scans than in quadrant scans, especially when the bite is captured on both sides. It also seems to happen more in patients with heavy clenching as their bite tends to deepen.
Oh, I see what you mean. This is likely because if the patient bites down hard, the PDL gets compressed, which affects the height of the teeth and gums. This in turn will lead to more compensation during the post-process stage. This is known as the overbite phenomenon. We discussed this in a session last March, but recently there have been additional questions on this topic. His main question was asking how to practically apply the occlusion adjustment option given that each patient bite force varies. Since the accuracy of the bite in the scan data is critical, we need to ensure that the process is as delicately tuned as possible like on sound engineer tuning music. To deeply investigate, we prepared a special session on the best way to perform occlusion adjustment. Let's watch the solution video together.
In conventional bite registration, errors can occur when the patient bites down in the wrong position or when the bite material was not properly trimmed before mounting. However, such errors are naturally avoided in digital methods where impression material does not exist in the interocclusal space. One of the inherent advantages of the digital impression method compared to the analog method is that the user can verify whether the occlusal bite has been accurately captured and can instantly adjust the bite intensity to the desired level. Because the user has so much control over every step, we can avoid uncertainties with proper use of the digital method. This study found that in 93% of single crown treatments using digital impressions, no occlusal adjustments were necessary. The very purpose of using digital methods is to achieve such near-perfect treatment outcomes. However, in reality, we sometimes encounter prosthetics with unexpectedly high or low occlusion in our daily practice. What are the factors that cause these occlusal discrepancies? So today, we are going to discuss in detail how to adjust occlusion for optimal use of the Medit scanner. We've broken it down into 3 sub-questions for clarity. First, we will talk about The mechanism of occlusion post-processing. Second, we will show the actual occlusal adjustment process through a real case where the patient has a heavy bite force. Lastly, we will look at how AI can help in finding the optimal bite. By utilizing these three ideas, you will be more confident when taking bite scans. Let's start with post-processing. We are revisiting a topic we have discussed in our March session, but we have added some additional notes. Here we can see a diagram showing two examples of how post-processing can create what appears to be an error. This is known as overbite phenomenon. When taking a bite scan, the patients will bite down, which will compress the PDL space, which can deform the height of teeth. Scan programs will try to correct for this by realigning arch data, but it could overcompensate, creating penetration that will not happen in reality. To address this, many scanner manufacturers provide adjustment options that allow clinicians to customize and adjust the alignment levels. In Medit's case, they have included a convenient toolbar-style interface within its settings to facilitate this process. This is a good example of how post-processing can lead to unwanted result. A user scanned a plaster model where the posterior teeth were not in contact, and after processing, the result showed a deformed occlusion that differed from the actual position. This is what we would expect in our result if we understand the mechanism of post-processing. The scan program by default is programmed to account for PDL space, so it treated this plaster model as if it had PDL space, and it produced an overcompensated result. So, as suggested by the Medit support team in the response, we can resolve the issue by moving the toolbar to minimize the compensation level. Keep in mind, you can change settings to adjust the alignment to your specific needs. The most commonly used option is the toolbar, where we can adjust the intensity of the occlusion. This sets the default configuration. The further you move the bar to the left, the less occlusion there is, and the further you move it to the right, the more occlusion there is. In other words, moving it to the left means that the amount of occlusal change during the processing will produce less compensation. So in the previous example, with the cast model, no compensation is needed, which means the bar should be set to the left. Now we are looking at how this affects an actual patient case using each of these three settings. It means we can play with these settings to suit clinician preference or for patient variance. Now, this raises a question. How can we adjust the occlusal force for each patient since every patient has a different bite force? Our clinic found that we were getting uneven results across our patients. As for Dr. Jiang, since he dislikes uncertainty, he wanted a way to minimize such variation in results. So he thought there was a need for standardization in terms of patient bite force and scan protocol. Our clinic came up with a way to achieve optimal occlusion by combining standardization and customization. For standardization, every scan follows the exact same protocol to minimize variation. As an example, Dr. Zhang prefers to have the patient support their jaw with their fist to ensure they bite down hard during the scan and the bar is set to the left. For customization, since every patient has a unique bite, we need to confirm the occlusal result for each patient. To facilitate this, Medit provides not only general setting options, but also a toolbar in the scan result window to adjust the occlusion on a case-by-case basis. This allows the immediate reflection of the patient's characteristics, in addition to the general preferences of the clinician. So how does Dr. Zhang handle this in actual clinical practice? For reasons unknown to the patient, Dr. Zhang shakes hands with him. What is he trying to do? He is attempting to roughly predict the patient's bite intensity through the strength of the handshake. In this case, Dr. Zhang predicted that the patient likely has a clenching habit based on his strong grip. Dr. Zhang then asks the patient to try occluding several times and takes pictures to record the bite using occlusal paper. This helps him understand the pattern of the occlusal points. As expected, the patient had a heavy bite, but Dr. Zhang does not adjust the general setting options. This is because it would be cumbersome to adjust the settings for each new patient. Instead, he instructs the patient to bite down more comfortably when scanning the bite. In addition, to standardize the procedure, Dr. Zhang instructs him to support his jaw with his fist while biting down more lightly. Now the patient is ready for an accurate scan. Now, it's Chen's turn. Scan expert Chen begins the bite scan. With smooth and controlled movements, she completes the scan and reviews the results. She then compares it with the occlusal points from the pictures taken earlier to see if they match, and if necessary, she adjusts using the toolbar. If it adjusts correctly, the scan is complete. By making this process routine, the variation in occlusal points caused by differences in patient bite strength can be minimized, resulting in more stable scan outcomes. Even with this protocol, you may end up with undesired results. How would you deal with such uncertainty? Just ignoring the situation is not a good choice. But asking the patient to go through the process again would anger the patient. To avoid any hassle, you could also adjust the result arbitrarily on the design program. But this can also produce inaccurate prosthesis. Surprisingly, now we can utilize AI technology to solve this problem. We are now in an era where AI technology is being integrated into almost every field, and the same is being attempted in analyzing patient occlusion. This study explains the mechanism of how AI technology simulates and identifies the optimal occlusion state. If the occlusion has been properly captured, the technology can be used to correct the scan result. Remarkably, even in cases where the occlusion has been captured incorrectly or incompletely, the technology can predict and identify the correct occlusal state. This study shows us that iOS working in tandem with AI can significantly reduce the occlusal discrepancy. It means, if you are not too familiar with the manual adjustment of occlusion, you can utilize this technology to improve your scan result. The program used in the study is called BiteFinder, and as of this year, it has been integrated within the MeditScan program. As you can see on the screen, once the scan is complete, you just need to press the app's Execute button, and within about 30 seconds, the AI analyzes the occlusion data on the server. After that, the program compares the optimal occlusion position it has found with the original file, allowing the user to select and use it. How incredible is this innovation? Even if a staff member accidentally captures a contactless occlusion, there's no need to recall the patient. The system finds the optimal occlusion, making it highly recommended for use in urgent situations. This is a summary of the entire process of handling and adjusting occlusion data. Initially, our clinic also felt that the results of occlusion recordings were inconsistent through the digital process, so we requested the remote lab to adjust it appropriately within the design program. However, we believe that relying on dental technicians like this introduces another layer of uncertainty. Naturally, the more reliable approach is to follow a standardized protocol for capturing occlusion scan data, then verify ourselves whether it matches the actual occlusal points in the patient's mouth before making adjustments and sending it off. It's true that at first, any protocol with an added inspection process seems complex and cumbersome. However, once you become accustomed to it, the time saved in the chair and the increased patient satisfaction will more than make up for it. This answers question number 1.
Does the software alter the scan data after scanning in alignment? I have received several scan cases where the adjacent teeth are misaligned around the scan body.
This is the second question. A dental technician asked a question about the scan data he received from a medic doctor. He is curious as to whether it's normal for the scan data to look like this because it doesn't seem to match up with the adjacent teeth. So he wants to know if the software alters scans after scanning and alignment. He pointed out that the data alignment is not really precise as it is not 100% central. So today, we want to talk about the accurate scan protocol for scan bodies. At first, I misunderstood his question and thought the main issue was that the scan body alignment was not central. However, the issue he raised was actually about the scan data of the adjacent teeth not being retained, unlike when receiving data from other intraoral scanners. If we look closely at the scan data, there was not a sufficient amount of data for the scan body. This may be because not enough area was covered while scanning the scan body. Therefore, it appears that adjacent teeth and scan body scan data have some gaps and were not matching precisely. This of course leads to the scan body position to not being accurately aligned. When scanning the scan body using a magic scanner, we can choose to perform the full scan with the scan body or to scan separately the base and the scan body. When scanning the scan body separately, the position relationship with adjacent teeth needs to be recorded, so covering sufficient area is important. Another user speculated that perhaps an incorrect protocol was being used during the scanning process and suggests that following the right workflow would correct this problem. The Magic Support team explained in detail that this is a characteristic of their scan software. We can just do a full scan with the scan body at a base scan stage and skip the scan body scan. In doing so, the separation phenomenon would not occur. Today, we revisit the scanning sequence and provide tips when scanning a scan body. Although this may seem basic, as many of you are already familiar with how this is done, we hope that this will help users new to Medit better understand the workflow. Let's watch the solution video together.
Since the interface of each scanner manufacturer's software varies, it is essential to have a precise understanding of the workflow recommended by each company. In most cases, it is recommended that the arch scan and the scan body are done separately. This applies to Medit scanners as well. The scanning is divided into two steps because the scan body is generally smaller than the prosthesis, and a scan of the gingival form is needed to set a subgingival margin for an appropriate emergence profile. However, the process of scanning the scan bodies separately sometimes leads to confusion among clinicians and dental technicians when communicating and interpreting the scan data. There are two ways to use scan bodies in Medit. The standard workflow is scan it separately, while the other method involves scanning in a single file. Which method you choose would depend on the situation. This user performed a good scan body scan, but after post-processing, the data was lost. This could happen when there is confusion with the workflow. As other users replied, it's likely that the scan body scan file was saved separately and the user missed it, or the user might have skipped recording the scan body stage while scanning. So if you choose to scan separately, it is imperative that you follow the exact Medit protocol. This is a video that we highly recommend new Medit scanner users watch. As we can see in the Medit trainer video, the standard protocol involves a two-step scanning process. By using the lock function, you can prevent unnecessary data, such as soft tissue, from being recorded during the scan body scanning process. This tip will help you get a clearer image. To finish this process, we need to verify our data to ensure that it is well aligned. There is one thing you must keep in mind when scanning the scan body separately. It is recommended to scan not only the scan body, but also two adjacent teeth to ensure it superimposes with the arch scan data. At Dr. Zhang's clinic, the scanning staff are advised to begin scanning from the adjacent teeth rather than the scan body itself. Additionally, before finishing the task, they ensure that there are no mismatched areas in the overlapping regions between the scan body and the adjacent teeth. After verifying everything is aligned well, it can be saved, and then the post-processing stage begins. During this stage, overlapping parts will be deleted, leaving only the scan body data. Think of the adjacent teeth as wings to the scan body, and these wings will be lost in post-processing like Icarus. There was a similar question asked by another user who wondered why only scan bodies showed up when the surrounding areas were scanned as well. As seen in the picture on the bottom left, after post-processing, only the scan body data remains, like an island. You may be puzzled as to why, despite clearly scanning the adjacent teeth, there was no trace of that data left. However, this is the normal feature of post-processing, and the fact that very little residual data remains, as in this case, indicates a more accurate scan. Looking again at the photo from today's question, we can observe some areas of adjacent teeth and soft tissue that were not automatically deleted, likely due to noise from light interference. However, if the alignment of the scan body itself is accurate, this noise data will not affect the precision of the prosthesis, so there's no need to worry about it. Medit's response to this question was that you could just have a full scan skipping the scan body scan. I think scanning the scan body simultaneously with the arch scan can sometimes be simpler and more convenient. Then, when should we choose a workflow that scans separately? And when should we opt for scanning the scan body simultaneously? Our team presented this question to Medit, and they broke down the situations where the simultaneous scan process, rather than a separate scan process, is recommended. If your case meets these conditions, you can proceed with a more simplified workflow by skipping the scan body scan stage. The scan body used in the posted question resembles a healing abutment, which would be connected during surgery, and it is not necessary to disconnect the scan body for the arch scan. Then let's look at an actual patient case using the simultaneous scan workflow. Dr. Zhang personally prefers to simplify the workflow and maximize patient comfort by connecting a metal scan body in the form of a healing abutment during surgery. In this case, the number 35 tooth was extracted, and implant placement was performed 2 weeks after the extraction. Along with sufficient bone grafting on the buccal side, he connected a scannable healing abutment. He chooses between 4 millimeters and 6 millimeters lengths, and in this case, since the initial fixation of the implant was sufficient, he chose the 6 millimeters one to make scanning easier. Once this is done during surgery, scanning is all we need to do on the day of suture removal. The alignment was completed using the AI matching function, a strong feature of the Medit program, and the entire scan was finished in just 5 minutes. Depending on the condition of the implant, we can decide when to deliver the prosthesis, which makes it convenient for both the clinician and the patient. This is truly a revolutionary workflow improvement achieved by introducing digital techniques into the clinic. Now, let's take a closer look at the simultaneous scanning process through the scanning of a deniform model. To scan in a single step when starting the scan body scan stage, there is a button in the lower left that allows you to copy the arch scan data. By pressing this button, you can import the scan body data recorded in the arch scan and trim the necessary parts for use. Another important tip, as we always emphasize, is for the user to align and verify the scan body data within the scan program. While it may be a bit tedious, it's the best way to consistently get accurate scan results. It's our job to verify the accuracy of the scan data, not the technician's. So rather than relying on your technician, it's important to familiarize yourself with this process. That concludes the answer to question 2.
Why does the hard disk show over 600 gigabytes of used space, while the cloud only shows 90 gigabytes have been used?
The third question pertains to hardware issues. If you have been scanning on a daily basis, you have probably run into the issue of insufficient hard drive disk space. In this scenario, Justin is showing a screen where the Medit Ring folder on his hard disk is taking up 649 GB, and he is currently facing storage issues on his computer. If this folder occupies too much disk space, this could slow down your computer, which is why using the cloud system is a good idea. Why is it that the hard disk is showing over 600 GB of used space, while the cloud only shows that 90 GB have been used? So today, we'll talk about the cloud system. Chen, our clinic is always running into this hard drive space issue, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of complaints about this with Dr. Zhang.
It seems like Chen is upset with me about something again. What is it this time?
First of all, whenever the hard drive are running out of space, we'll tell Dr. Zhang, but he just ignores it and tell us he will fix it later. But then he doesn't.
You know that I'm always busy treating my patient.
But there was even a time when we couldn't use 3 out of the 6 scanning computers.
Oh, I remember that. I was really busy back then, so it's true that I didn't pay much attention to what you are telling me. But actually, isn't this a problem that could be avoided if you staff just deleted the uploaded files regularly?
You don't get it. Not all the scan data is always uploaded to the cloud right away, which means deleting files could lead to losing important data. That's exactly what happened one time, and I got so angry.
Isn't your job to check if the file have been uploaded to the cloud before deleting things? It sounds like a user error to me.
No, it's your error. You could just buy a bigger hard drive instead of trying to save money and blaming me.
I thought I already bought good enough computers, so I'm not sure why this keeps happening. Why does this issue keep coming up at our clinic? Let's find out through this solution video.
Let's first address the main issue he raised. Why is there a difference between the file size on the hard disk and the cloud? Dr. Syed, who often provides useful insights in the Facebook community, kindly explained the reason behind this. He mentioned that this is due to raw files not being listed on the cloud. This is the reason why the size appears smaller on it. However, this does not mean that the files hasn't been uploaded. Still, he recommended that it's sometimes a good idea to make sure whether all the files are successfully uploaded by verifying if recently scanned data can be re-downloaded. By following his guidelines, you can see whether the cloud is working. Another user, Tony, also kindly provided a detailed response. As shown on the slide, if the scan program and data occupies a significant amount of space, it could be a burden, even with a sufficient hard disk capacity. If the hard disk is always full, it can slow down the performance. In the worst-case scenario, it may lead to the blue screen error while scanning, which everyone would dread. Therefore, it is essential to regularly check that you have enough hard disk capacity. Once raw files are safely uploaded to the cloud, you'd better to delete them from your hard disk. In our clinic, each staff member is assigned their work computer, and we routinely clean the hard disk at the end of each month to lighten the load on the computer. However, there are times when you can't upload files to the cloud. What could be the cause of this? Based on our experience, there are mainly 3 reasons. First, if the user does not promptly update the version of MeditLink, there may be a delay when uploading a file to the cloud, since there could be a difference in the versions between the scanned files and the data being collected on the cloud. So we suggest you develop the habit of updating as soon as you get the notification pop-up. Second, the problem happens when there is insufficient hard disk space. Even if there is enough space in the cloud, files must first be saved in raw file format on the hard disk before being transferred to the cloud. But if you don't have enough hard disk space, the upload will not be proceeded. Lastly, this could also happen when the internet connection is slow and MeditLink keeps sending weak network signals. In this case, you should check the strength of the Wi-Fi signal, but the best solution is to switch to an Ethernet connection to ensure a fast data transmission. No matter how good the router is, it cannot be more stable or faster than a wired LAN connection. Therefore, if there are files that have not been uploaded, you need to find those files and ensure they are properly uploaded to the cloud. The first thing to do is update MeditLink to the latest version. Afterward, run cloning the case for the files that were not uploaded and trigger the synchronization. This will allow the blocked raw data to pass through the gate safely. Once this process is confirmed, periodically delete large raw data files to prevent unnecessary files from accumulating on your computer. For detailed instructions, you can refer to the video provided by Medit on how to use the Case Synchronization Manager feature. As we always emphasize, if you are using intraoral scanners, you need to make an effort to keep your computers in good condition. It's better to ensure that all clinic staff are familiar with and practice preventive measures before problems happen. At our clinic, we follow a few guidelines to maintain computers in a lean state. First, as mentioned today, the designated staff regularly clears the raw files on the computer. Second, we make use of Windows Storage Sense feature. Setting it to run automatically allows it to periodically delete unnecessary temporary files, much like a robotic vacuum. Finally, the most important is to avoid installing unnecessary programs. Do not install games to test high-performance graphics cards, and if possible, refrain from installing large work-related programs like Microsoft Office. Another tip is to disable cloud synchronization programs like OneDrive. For the computer mainly used for scanning, files synchronization should only occur with Medit Cloud. In other words, it's best to use the scanning computer only for scanning purposes. To easily manage your computer in a lean state, it is a good idea to partition the drives when installing programs from the beginning. In Dr. Zhang's case, he prefers storing scan data on its own designated drive, meaning nothing else is on here. By doing this, you can easily copy and back up scan files in case of an emergency, and it also makes periodic formatting more convenient. To set up your computer in this way, it is recommended to choose a system with 2 separate SSD drives when purchasing the computer. Meanwhile, the C drive should be reserved for installing only scanning programs and other essential dental software, leaving plenty of free space. By maintaining the simplified state and enabling the storage sense feature, you can prevent the computer from slowing down significantly as usage accumulates. It's like an anti-aging treatment for your computer. So far, we've explained how to avoid hard disk capacity issues. We recommend applying these tips to your scanning computers. This concludes the answer to question 3.
What is the proper method for scanning a 2-piece scan body?
This is the last question for this month. Kevin tried scanning with a true Ottoman scan post, but the scan cap would disappear when he stopped scanner. He had never encountered this with any other product, so he wanted to know what was going on here. As we can see from the scan image, he has great scanning technique. I was not sure myself why that happened when I first saw this, and I didn't even know what that product was. What we do know is that there should be an additional component connected to this metal scan body, but it was not captured by the scanner. So today, we want to address how to properly scan this kind of product. After Google search, we found that the product in question has a plastic cap placed over a metal-based scan body. I believe that it serves as a kind of hybrid scan body where the metal base provides a more accurate scan result and the plastic cap makes scanning more convenient. But the issue is that when trying to scan the cap part, it is automatically erased, so Kevin is wondering what is causing this. And Kevin mentioned a lime green scan cap, but based on what I saw on Google, it appeared closer to what I think looks like an ivory colored Spartan helmet. The shape of the cap appears to be quite complex, and the more complex it is, the easier it is to scan. So it's either that it's not being captured properly, or in this case, just disappears. Or you just suggest that it may have been caused by the smart color filtering function, but Kevin assured us that the color filtering option was turned off. Chen, have you ever experienced something like this?
Yes, I have. Not with a plastic cap, but when directly scanning the metal scan body with a minimal exposure. In the case, I think the scanner would identify that part of the scan body to filter out as an artifact or noise because of the small exposure.
Oh, I see. You suspect the issue may be related to smart scan filtering mode, which selectively captures pink and white color to distinguish between gums and teeth. So now I wonder, if the other parts are locked and the filtering mode is set to unlimited, would the cap not be deleted? Or could it be that there are other filtering options that we need to adjust or turn off? This is something I tend to test. Fortunately, I have a very similar product to experiment with. Let's watch a solution video.
There are many different kinds of scan bodies. This image, which many of you have likely seen before, explains that scan bodies can be classified based on the body and base sections. In particular, for the accuracy of the connection area, scan bodies with a metal base are preferred, and with the improvement in scanner performance, full metal scan bodies are more widely used today. Despite the availability of these different designs, one common desire among our users is for scan bodies to have a more complex form that would be more advantageous for scanner recognition. Unfortunately, due to patent issues, the ideal scan body design that users are looking for is hard to find. In situations like this, using a cylindrical scan body with a typical D-cut can lead to unexpected results. When the implant is placed deeply and you don't have a scan body with sufficient length, the critical features of the scan body needed for recognition are not fully exposed above the gingiva. Having a more ideal shape exposed above the gums would make the scanning process easier. The AI matching function can sometimes successfully compensate for the alignment process in this situation. But even with help of AI, if we don't have enough data points for scan body alignment, deviation can still occur, leading to concerns about the accuracy and reliability of the scan. In challenging cases, like in the previous example, several ideas have come up to improve the overall ease and accuracy by changing scan body design. One approach is to design the scan body in a two-piece configuration. This allows for better control and adaptability in various clinical situations, especially when dealing with deep implant placements, improving the overall scan quality and ensuring more precise data capture. Now let's look back at the specific product he used in his scan. The advantage of a two-piece scan body design is that when the exposed portion of a metal scan body is too small to be accurately scanned, it shifts the scan target above the gingiva. Scanning a peak material cap is much easier, and since the alignment is later done using key points, it's sufficient to scan only the decut portion. Typically, the library allows for alignment in both the metal state and with the scan cap attached, so you can choose the approach based on the surrounding gingival conditions. If the scan body is long enough, you can scan it in its metal state. If it's too short, you can attach the cap and scan it in that state. This is why Dr. Zhang calls it a hybrid-type scan body. This is similar to the concept of a hybrid car, offering flexibility depending on the situation. In theory, the hybrid-type scan body should have worked perfectly for this situation. He set up the scan body to overcome the exposure issue, and we would have done the same thing. So what happened? Both Dr. Zhang and Medity team thought that this was unusual, so they discussed possible reasons for this. Dr. Zhang's thoughts were that locking the area around the scan body could have helped in this case, ensuring the scanner would be more focused on the target. Medit hypothesizes that the issue could be due to the scan cap not being large enough. This may cause the appearance of the plastic cap floating above the metal, leading the scanner to interpret it as an artifact, which is automatically deleted. This process is called small cluster filtering, a built-in feature of the scanning software. While this filtering is weaker during the scan body stage, allowing the scan body to remain intact, it becomes more aggressive during the arch scan stage, resulting in the automatic deletion of parts that appear as floating artifacts. So we reached out to this user, asking him what his protocol was. Interestingly, he reported that when he used the scan body stage mode, the automatic deletion did not occur. It only occurred in the arch scan mode. So this leads us to believe that our theory was correct. Then how can we reliably scan a hybrid-type scan body? As we always emphasize, providing the scanner with preset information is crucial. If you're using a hybrid-type scan body, it's essential to always register it and utilize AI matching for optimal results. Moreover, by doing this, we can verify that the scan data is properly obtained and aligned. We conducted an experiment with a similar product. This dentiform model simulates the scenario immediately after an extraction and immediate implant placement. Following our scan strategy, instead of trying to scan the gingival area or the metal pillar, we pre-registered the scan cap shape and attempted AI matching. The result was successful. Upon reaching the matching point after scanning from an adjacent tooth, the scanning software immediately recognized it and performed AI matching. This highlights how utilizing Medit's software features can make the scanning process much smoother. Let's not forget that these strong features can greatly enhance our workflow efficiency. In this question, we analyzed the scanning method for hybrid-type scan bodies. Today, we learned that a new type of scan body does not necessarily require a special scanning technique. By following the general rules for scanning scan bodies, you can proceed with the scan using the same workflow without any issues. If you are having difficulties with the implant scanning process, we recommend trying to use these hybrid-type scan bodies. This concludes the answer to question number 4.
This wraps up today's webinar. Thank you for being here. We hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.